Hi people, it's Sarkovist here, and today I'm going to be talking about Grid AutoSport and WarCraft. So yeah, let's start with Grid AutoSport. Don't consider this a review, just consider it like a first impressions. And the first thing that struck me, as you know most games do these days, are the graphics, and they are really nice. But then again, outside of the track, they do seem to diminish in quality. So you've got a really nice looking track with lots of detail in it. The cars themselves look spectacular. Even the grass looks pretty nice for a racing game. The detail is definitely there. But then on some maps, when you look outside of the track itself, you begin to notice that all the detail has disappeared. You know, there are trees without any grass going around them. They look really basic. The human models, if you actually take a look at them, look terrible. But the thing is, because you're driving so fast all the time, you hardly ever notice it. In fact, even when you are standing still, unless you're in a very specific area, they've kept it deliberately flat outside so you can't tell that they've made certain sacrifices. And I'm not actually going to say this is a criticism, because what they've done here is intelligently optimised their game, so it still looks great on the surface and gives you a great frame rate, but they've made intelligent sacrifices to make sure that you've got a good, consistent frame rate. I don't think the tyre smoke seems to come up as much as it did in Grid 2 though. Also, I don't know if this is just because I crash less in this game or not, but the crashes don't seem to be quite as over the top as before. But then again, over the top, it depends if you want over the top. Personally, I think the people who actually want to play Grid AutoSport will probably be into the more authentic side. Need for Speed is more about those crazy crashes. And then there's another problem with Grid AutoSport that's nothing to do with the game itself, but rather how it's so similar to its contemporaries and games that fit into the same genre. Games such as Forza, such as Grid 2 and Grid 1, such as Gran Turismo, they all feel very similar. You're racing on the same track, you're racing in the same cars, it's got a very similar feel to it, you know, you're purchasing upgrades. The games feel so similar that it makes it very difficult to recommend anyone actually playing Grid AutoSport, because by this point, there are so many alternatives out there that you can get for so much cheaper. In fact, I would recommend someone who just saw the gameplay and said, you know what, I like the look of that game, I would say go play Grid 2. That's its greatest weakness, is that the game is so similar to what's come before it. In itself, the game is spectacular, and if you haven't actually played any of these games before, this is a great place to start. Don't get me wrong though, I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that Grid AutoSport is a bad game. It's just that when you have a realistic genre such as this, there's only so much the developers can do. It's exactly the same for sports games. I'm sure they'd love to introduce really cool new features, but all they can really do is put some subtle refinements in, because that's all they have as an option. To summarise what I'm saying about Grid AutoSport, although in itself it's a great game, if you've played loads of games that's similar to this, I don't think this is offering anything massively new. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to talking about WarCraft, and the first thing I'm going to say about WarCraft is, wow, this game has been going on for some time and it's still going, it's still got some new tricks up its sleeve. Now, first of all, I want you to think back to 2004. Now think about what game you were playing in 2004. Chances are you probably either forgotten about it or you're at least not playing it. There might be some exceptions, but most people will say, I can't even remember, or I was having a great game but now all I have are the memories. In fact, that's probably what I'd say. I was probably playing some PlayStation 2 game like Lego Star Wars. I love Lego Star Wars, but it's dumb. Now, a lot of people actually played World of Warcraft back then, and some of them are still playing. Now, it's incredible that a game can hold on to people for that long. Now, personally, I didn't start then. I believe I started in around 2006. I came on while the game was becoming a bit notorious. I heard about it and I looked at it. I thought, you know, this looks quite a lot of fun. And I've been playing it very much off and on. I haven't been playing it straight by any means. And it's incredible that they're still bringing out expansions, because as you know, the Warlords of Draenor is on its way. But the problem is they have now is, how can they possibly innovate? Because they've got a formula that's obviously so successful that changing it is like suicide, but at the same time you have to adapt to survive. So what can we expect from this game to be different? We can expect new locations, obviously, we can expect a few new spells for our classes, but there can never be anything truly game changing, because you just don't want to mess with something that works. And that's going to be perhaps its downfall in the end, because they'll be so afraid to make the big tough choices that they'll end up just making their game repetitive and monotonous, as I'm sure many people out there believe it's already become. Okay, I'm going to wrap this video up now. As always people, thanks very much for watching and see you next time.